Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of season 9. I think we're on now of Wild Odd. Yeah, I know, of Wild Wild Podcast. My name is Adrian Smith, and I've got my red mask on. Rod, have you got your red mask on?
Yes, and my red underwear. I'm good.
Oh, good. So you're ready for superhero adventures and medieval adventures?
Whatever comes down the streaming pipeline.
So, did you say streaming or steaming?
It could be either. I meant steaming. I hope I said that. Yeah.
Okay. Just doesn't sound very savory. Anyway, let's carry on and let's move away from these strained openings. Right, I can't know what I'm saying. Hello, we're back, and I've got my co-host with me for these adventures in medieval Italy, Rod Barnett. How are you doing, Rod?
I am doing well, and I'm very glad to talk about this film today.
Yeah, this is a good one. This is film number 60. I can't even count. If I've been keeping a record on Letterboxd correctly, this is our 60th film on the podcast, which I think is not bad going for 3 years.
Yeah, I don't know that I would have thought it was higher or lower than that. I've not really given it that much thought, but I guess okay, cool.
Yeah, it's a good chunk of film, while still barely scratching the surface of everything there is out there.
Oh, I know.
But yeah,
even in just this genre, reading and doing a little bit of research about this film led me to 2 other films that we haven't even talked about, adding to this particular thread of this particular season. And I want to see them both. And I'm like, oh my God, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would have definitely picked up on at least one of those. So before we get into the terror of the Red Mask, Rod, what have you been up to lately?
Not much. Trying to pull together the next episode of The Bloody Pit, and kind of looking forward to a Beyond Naschy episode of the Naschy cast, trying to get all my ducks in a row to get those recorded. Of course, the current episode of The Bloody Pit is the Star Trek VI wrap-up of the first 6 Trek feature films. And there are other projects on the boil, but nothing that I can speak about publicly quite yet.
Now, it may just be that I've got podcasts backing up on my phone, but didn't you also just recently put out another Sherlock Holmes one?
Oh, that was about a month ago, 2 months ago now. But yeah, we did a Sherlock Holmes one fairly recently. Good film.
Yeah, I think I've just got them. You know what it's like. I've just got a big queue of podcasts.
Oh yeah, well, and part of it, I'm the same way. Part of having a big queue of different podcasts to listen to is just it's very comforting to know, hey, if I've got the time, or even if I'm just traveling somewhere, guess what? I've got something to listen to.
Yeah. That's it, everybody. When I'm not talking to Rod on a podcast, I'm listening to Rod on a podcast.
Oh my, that's too much me. That's definitely too much me.
It's like cinema 4D or something. Anyway, so let's, without a moment to waste, let's get into our second film in our Rapiers and Ruffles season. Did I say that the right way around, or is it Ruffles and Rapiers?
Rapiers and Ruffles. I've always tried to pair them with the sword and sandal. Therefore, the bladed weapon is first. Yeah. Yes,
of course. Right. So the next film in our Rapiers and Ruffles season, complete with bombastic score, is Il Terrore. Hang on, get it right. Il terrore, I can't even say it. Il terrore della maschera rossa, or the terror of the red mask. This is very Errol Flynn type film. I enjoyed this one a lot.
Oh, yeah. This is very typical of why I love this genre. This film is a perfect example of why I occasionally get the urge to watch this type of movie. This is a fine example of the genre, and one that I think could be used as a good starting point for a lot of people.
If it was possible to watch a decent copy.
There is that. Yes. Yeah.
So this is a great, widescreen, very colourful film with a really good score. But so depending on where you live in the world, so I had to watch it on YouTube, which was a Russian dub, but with English subtitles.
Mm-hmm. The subtitles are generated by YouTube.
But they're actually pretty good. I found
Yeah, they're actually good. Yeah.
they were good, the YouTube ones. But there is also an English dub track version available on Tubi, I believe,
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
but not where I live, sadly.
Yes,
Did
here in the
try.
States, I was able to watch both. And I did a silly thing, which is I tried to watch both at the same time. I would watch like 20 minutes of one version and then switch to the other and watch that same 20 minutes in the other version just to kind of compare and contrast.
Okay.
And that means it took forever to watch this movie. But I'll be honest, I enjoyed every minute.
And was it the same?
Yes, yes. There was a slight. I thought there was going to be some kind of difference between because there's roughly a 3 minute or 2.5 minute long difference in the run times.
Oh,
But it seems that is just because of how they are projected. I'm guessing that's probably from the
Yeah.
original source material because I could not detect anything outstanding, anything that I could determine anyway, without going scene by scene by scene, and side by side comparison that one scene that one version had over the other. So
I did also find that this has been released on DVD in Germany, in Spain, and in Greece.
interesting.
Yeah, but on its original release, I can't find any evidence that it was seen anywhere apart from Italy. This again, despite the casting, the star
Right.
of the movie being an all-American hero, it doesn't appear to have had any distribution either in America or the UK. Although that might be wrong because it did end up with something weird video
Okay.
as well, which means they must have had a 35mm print of it knocking around.
Yeah.
So it must have been seen somewhere for them to end up with it. But I can't find any evidence of reviews or distributors or anything like that. So, yeah, not sure what really happened to it. But it deserves a full and, detailed restoration,
Yes.
complete with soundtrack release and all of that. All that good stuff. This is a really good film.
This is a lot of fun. This is typical of what I've come to expect from the films that Lex Barker made in Europe during the 60s.
Well, let's start with him. So
Yeah.
I know, like a lot, you can assume with most of these things, I don't know anybody. So for the benefit of me and anyone else who's unfamiliar with Lex Barker, can you sort of talk us through him and his career a little bit?
Sure. Lex Barker was an American movie actor who became famous primarily for being one of the actors who played Tarzan in the 1950s. He played the character in a number of films. I forget exactly how many, but they were entertaining Tarzan adventures. And he has the physique and the physicality to pull it off. He's athletic, he's handsome, and he's got just enough acting ability to make you believe that he is actually going through the motions of these with some reality wrapped around him. At some point, and I can't remember exactly when, I'm assuming it's the late 50s, he decided to try his hand at European productions, and he never really kind of had to look back as far as as far as things are concerned, because he was in every kind of adventure and action genre film that you can imagine in the 1960s. Like I said, he was playing Tarzan in the early to mid 50s, but by a decade later, he is very well known for playing Old Shatterhand in a number of German westerns alongside Pierre Brice, and doing a lot of movies that have they have their niche audiences these days, including things like The Torture Chamber of Dr. Sadism, which is easily available these days, thank goodness. But also not just the German westerns. He was in a few of the Eurospy films.
He did some of the Dr. Mabuse sequels.
He was in Return of Dr. Mabuse and The Invisible Dr. Mabuse, which are also about to get Blu-ray releases.
Yes,
thank goodness.
This is like the Bloody Pit bump. You cover films on the podcast, and then they get announced as a box set. I think that's how it works. Right?
if only 'twere true. But he was in things like Tales of the Vikings, which was just a TV series. But also like Night of 100 Faces, which we mentioned in the last episode, because it was directed by the same director of The Black Duke. Son of the Red Corsair, Captain Falcon, The Pirate and the Slave Girl. Trust me, he was in a lot of movies. There's not a single year that went by in the 60s when he wasn't in at least 3 films. And if you're talking about the mid 60s, he was in like 5 to 6 movies that were coming out in those years. For a long period of time. We're talking stretching all the way to like 1967. So at a certain point, the string ran out in Europe. He went back to the States, did some episodic television, even a night gallery. He turns up in a segment of Night Gallery in 1972. But always good to see him. Always someone you can count on in these particular roles. Lex Barker is one of those things. It has become a pretty regular thing for me that if I see his name in the cast, I'm pretty sure I'm going to at least enjoy the film to a certain moderate level.
It's fair to say he had a pretty complicated private life.
In which way?
Well, he was married 5 times.
Yes. He is one of those people. There's a strange syndrome for some people. I like to call it Jean-Claude Van Damme syndrome, because he's the current person who I think holds the record, where it seems as if he sleeps with someone, he feels like he has to marry them. And so this is complicated by the fact that he now has like almost double-digit marriages to his credit. And the same was true of Lex. This is true.
Yeah, and according to this little biography I'm just looking at, it was his divorce from Lana Turner that kind of killed his Hollywood career, and that's when he went to Europe to kind of get away from all that. But really sad to see that he died when he was only 54.
I know. It was, from what I understand, he died in his own home of a heart attack, which was incredibly unexpected considering his athletic lifestyle.
Yeah, and that was after his 5th divorce. He had another girlfriend by that point. So, yeah, interesting guy. And yeah, I need to see some of those Tarzan films. He also, just the titles. I mean, I don't just want to sit here and read stuff off the IMDb, but loads of cool sort of adventure movies and all kinds of things. Now, with this film, I guess we'll get into the plot more in a minute, but my question when we watched the film last time was, who is the hero of this movie? And it was quite complicated in the last one. This one is interesting because it's called The Terror of the Red Mask, and it's about this secret outlaw, the Red Mask. But Lex Barker is not the Red Mask. That's not a spoiler, I don't think.
And so it's film, although he is centered in a weird way, because he does turn into the eventual hero, the film spends a lot more time with the villain character and all the surrounding characters, which I think is to the film's benefit. For
a good portion of the film, he's a supporting character, along with one of my new favourite comedy double acts that we'll get into.
Okay, but, well, let's go ahead and get into the thing Rod does not like in the film.
Well, hang on. Before we talk about the cast, let's just brief. Oh well, no, go on then.
Well,
let's just do that. So there's a few really interesting people in this film.
There are.
We've mentioned Lex Barker. I've just mentioned the comedy duo. So why don't we talk about them then? Let's just do that. So there's 2 characters that he meets very early on in the film, called Uguccione and Fanello, played by Elio Crovetto, who's the tall, stupid one, and Riccardo Billi, who is the short, stupid one. Basically, they're both kind of stupid. Although Finello seems to be slightly smarter, but only just. And Uguccione has a pet monkey.
Are you sure that? I thought it was Mark. Was it? I thought the one playing the taller one, the one who's always got his pet monkey. I thought that one was played by Marco. Is it Marco Guglielmi?
Well, the character's name in the Russian version was Uguccione.
Oh, okay.
So I assumed, but there is an actor whose surname is Guglielmi. Anyway, there's a tall one and a short one. He's got a pet monkey, and he sometimes gets confused. So to clear his mind and focus him, all Finello has to do is shout "girls," and then that kind of snaps him back into action.
Does seem to focus his mind, yes.
Yeah, that's kind of their shtick. But it's funny because this is not a comedy film.
No.
But whenever they are on screen, it turns into a comedy. And I'll put a little clip in here, even down to the kind of music to accompany their hilarious japes. And I just thought of you the whole time.
Well, okay, let's be open and blunt here. I had not seen this film before, and obviously you had not either.
Mm-mm.
So I'm seeing this particular season as a way to further explore this subgenre that I have so much affection for. So this one is one that this is the first one that we're covering that I had not seen before at all, and so I was very excited when I sat down to watch it. And we're only a few minutes in. I pause it because I get a message from you, and you remark that you're surprised that I decided to include this film considering it has a comedy duo in it. And I was
really?
just at the point where we had run across the comedy duo, and I was holding my head in my hands and going, "Oh my God, no."
That's hilarious that the timing of that message.
Yes, and I didn't want to let you know that you had hit the nail on the head, as I was only about 15 minutes into the movie and was already thinking that I'm just going to have to find a nail to dig into my thigh to make it through this thing. But turns out, thank goodness, that the comedy stylings of our two doofi, or doofuses, or whatever the plural is, does not overwhelm anything in the movie. Thank goodness. Their idiocy is not plot dependent. There's nothing that they do that actually interfere. None of the comedy idiocy is actually necessary to the plot, nor does it interfere with any of the action in any way.
No, apart from at the end, but I don't know if I want to give that away. But there is a bit where they intervene in the worst way, whilst trying to help their friend Marco.
But I would argue that's not necessarily something that you would have to have them to be a comedic duo to.
Oh well, no.
Yes. I mean that simply that's true. The comedy doesn't from a misunderstanding. Yeah. So
yeah. So they turn up in a couple of Franco and Ciccio films. Can you imagine all four of them in one film?
I can. I want to bang my head against the wall when I do imagine it. One of them, and this is something that I was I know very little about this, but one of them, the Riccardo Bili, his career stretches back into the 40s, and he was in a lot of those Toto films.
More comedies,
Yeah. So it seems like he was one of those people who, whether he was part of a duo or not, he's someone who had a lot of experience doing comedy for years and years and years. And I was unaware of just how pervasive and how the Toto thing was. The fellow who made, I don't know, dozens of comedy films. I mean, he was an institution in Italy for decades.
And when we talked about him when we did our commentary for Danza Macabra, because it was using the sets of a Toto movie, But by the point that they did that film, the Monk of Monza,
Mm-hmm.
I think he was almost entirely blind, and he'd been,
Wow.
he was reaching the end of his Toto career. He still made a few more after that, but yeah, there are so many of those things. It's quite remarkable. But yeah, this guy Billy, he also occasionally turned up in Hollywood films if they were filming in Cinecittà, presumably.
Mm-hmm.
Like he pops up in the Pink Panther
Yeah.
at one point and stuff like that. But yeah, their comedy stylings here don't ruin things too badly,
Thank
thankfully.
God.
But yeah, they kind of make friends with Lex Barker pretty early on in the film, and then just hang around with their monkey. Couple of other people to mention. So there are two female characters who obviously are both in love with Marco.
Well,
Lex
even
Barker.
eventually, but how could you not be? I mean, look at Lex
Exactly.
Barker with those cheekbones.
So the first one to mention is a character called Karima,
Mm-hmm.
a sort of gypsy girl who dances and has a performing bear. And
Yes.
she is incredible, actually. I was looking at her biography, and
Oh,
yeah, she
she's
had
kind of
a
amazing.
pretty spectacular career, yeah.
I've talked about her
were you-
before because
Okay.
about 2 years ago, Mark Maddox and I did a couple of recently released Blu-ray Peplum films, one of which was Son of Samson, which
yeah.
is it's actually a Machiste film, of course.
Yes.
And she has a prominent role in that as a queen, and she's just amazing. Her name is Chelo Alonso, and she's a Cuban actress who was very well known as a dancer, and that got her into the movies. She had a brief movie career for roughly 10 years and was in just a lot of Peplum films and movies of this type. There's a couple of Eurospy things where she popped up. She was in things like Morgan the Pirate and, as I said, Son of Samson. This movie, Attack of the Moors, The Pirate and the Slave Girl, Goliath and the Barbarians. So you kind of get the idea. She stopped being in movies in 1962 once she got married and started raising a family, but then she got enticed back into a couple of movies at the end of the 60s. One with a cameo non-speaking role in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, but then with pretty decent roles playing what appears to be the same character in a pair of spaghetti westerns. One that a lot of people will know, Run Man Run, the Thomas Milian film, fantastic movie, and then Night of the Serpent that came out in 1969. But that's really the end of her screen career. But man, she hits hard and leaves a mark. She's amazing.
She was known as the Cuban H-bomb when she performed in Paris at the Folies Bergère. Yeah. And then she married a producer, Aldo Pomiglia, who was working on The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which I think is why she ended up popping up in there. And it says here that she, after her husband died in the 80s, she moved to Tuscany, and she bred cats and also ran a hotel and restaurant. And she only passed away 5 years ago.
Right. She passed away in
It's a
2019.
shame. Yeah.
All I can say is that I
she's-
wish she had been on screen more, because she is a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah. Yeah, she is good. And her character is very interesting in this film. She keeps you guessing all the time about where her loyalties lie. And of course she gets to do a couple of good dances, sort of belly dances and things. And she dances with a bear, which is interesting. In the close-ups it's a bear, in the wide shots it's a guy in a costume.
Yes,
But
not too hard to distinguish that.
No. But she dances, it's very, very entertaining. Just what you expect in these kind of films. And again, like the last film we did, her dancing, and she's doing like all the dances with the veils and things, and it's
That's a great sequence too. Very cinematically handled.
The choreography and even the music are just straight from a Peplum. She could have been doing the same dance on the set next door in some Hercules film. The other female lead character who is kind of the daughter of the niece of the villain, played by Liana Orfei. And she's interesting as well. She did films, mainly Peplums again, but
Right.
primarily she was a circus girl. And she was a clown from the age of 2 and ran circuses, was still running a circus in the 80s. And yeah, her life was basically dedicated to the circus. She just occasionally did some films. Which sort of makes me wish that she'd had the chance to do a bit more trapeze or something, acrobatics in this film, but I assume she probably does in some of her other films.
I don't know. I definitely have seen some of the movies. I've definitely seen some of the movies that she's been in. By the way, she apparently was uncredited as one of the female agents, a Russian female agent, in a previous movie we saw. The Fulci film, Operation Luna,
yes.
Which is frightening to be, frightening to be reminded of.
Again, twice in one episode. I'm so
know,
sorry.
It's almost as if they're hovering over me like the sword of Damocles, only in hideous comedy stylings mode.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was in a lot of peplums, and it's not a shock to see her in this as well. She was in Hercules, Samson, and Ulysses, and Damon and Pythias. It's Rage of the Buccaneers, The Giant of Metropolis, which I can actually recommend. She had a pretty decent role in Mill of the Stone Women as well.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Not much circus skills required in that one.
No, but
I
would like to point out that if we're going to try to will ourselves into having to view a film, she is someone else that popped up in Night of 100 Faces. So there's that.
Yeah. So it's just interesting. You wouldn't guess from the role she plays here that she was a circus person, particularly.
No,
but it makes sense. It makes sense that they would cast somebody like her in peplum films. I mean, with there are often scenes with animals and things. It's almost like in this film she should have jumped in and fought with the bear because she'd probably have known what to do.
Well, I thought it was interesting. There's one of the things, and of course producers frown upon this heavily, but there's at least one scene where I can see that it's Lex Barker actually doing what I would consider to be a fairly dangerous stunt. Most of the time you can tell that it is not him doing some of the stunt work, because the stunt man, even at a distance, you can tell that's definitely a different face. This guy is not nearly as handsome as Lex Barker. But there is one scene where he falls off a horse, and it's all done in one shot, and it's clearly him, which I thought was very interesting. Yeah.
And I think some of the swinging around on ropes and chains and stuff in the big Errol Flynn finale looked like him.
Some of it was. Some of it was not, and you, like I say, there are moments when you can tell. But
okay, not on the print I was watching. But the other main character to mention. So I guess it would probably help if we'd explain the plot a bit more. But basically, there's a castle. There's an evil Duke Astolfo, who basically his brother was a kind duke. But now he's dead and Astolfo has taken over, and his brother's daughter is Yolanda, played by Liana Orfei, and she will inherit the castle and the title when she gets married. But Astolfo is trying to kind of keep that under wraps and keep that all controlled, because he is evil and he tortures people to death in his dungeon. So he's played by Livio Lorenzon.
Yes.
Who, again, quite a familiar face. I'm assuming, I've seen him in some stuff, but he's just in loads of things. He's got the sort of face where you would expect him to mainly play villains.
Well, once again, he's in Night of 100 Faces.
Yeah.
We're going to have to eventually break down and see that. Honestly.
Okay. It's fine. Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, he's in that as well.
Zorro and the Three Musketeers.
Wow, that is a lot of hero for your money. He's in another film that we mentioned last time as well, the Invincibles, which is the Hercules, Samson, Machiste, and Ursus team up. Yeah, He basically stomps around being cross the whole time in this movie because
it's rare that he has a look on his face that is anything other than angry or irritated. Yes,
because I think there's a couple of threats to his dukedom. One is the Borgias are hovering in the background. Another mention for the Borgias, that they are poised. At some point, they might be able to take over. But also, the threat that's on his doorstep is the mysterious Red Mask, who leads a band of about, I don't know, like 5 people. It's quite a small band of people. But the Red Mask leads a group of people who, like last time, nobody knows who the Red Mask is, not even the people who follow the Red Mask.
And I love that conceit. And we've had 2 films in a row that unexpectedly we have the main protagonists being someone who is a mystery, and I kind of like that.
I'm pretty sure they said they've never even heard the Red Mask's voice.
Right. And of course, near the end of the film, you understand why, because people will recognize the voice.
All the orders are written down, I assume. So he's torturing people in his dungeon, trying to find out who the Red Mask is. No one knows who the Red Mask is, but the Red Mask is just annoying him and his men, whilst he tries to overtax the locals. Anyway, so that's the kind of setup. I have got a plot summary. Oh, we should mention the director.
Oh,
we haven't done that. Luigi Capuano. Again, somebody I'd never heard of, and have not been able to find out much about him, except he did make a lot of films.
He made quite a few,
yeah. Including, again, some Zorro films, like all the films that you like.
Yes, exactly. Well, he made a couple of Sandokan films. He made the first couple of sequels to the Umberto Lenzi Sandokan film, and several Hercules / Samson movies. The Executioner of Venice, which has also got got Lex Barker in and Guy Madison. He made a couple of spaghetti westerns, but he seems to mostly be doing things like Mystery of Thug Island and Adventures in Tortuga and stuff like that. So
lots of films about Zorro.
Right. I know. It's like he got caught up in that. There's a couple that I've seen that I noticed on his list that I definitely want to eventually check out. Dracula the Avenger from 1961 seems like one that I definitely got to find. So.
And isn't Zorro basically quite a similar character to the Red Mask in this film?
Very much so, although Zorro is very verbal. So
yeah, that's true. But this sort of mystery: who is the Red Mask?
Who is Zorro?
I've got a plot summary which I managed to find. There's very little written about this film. There are 2 short reviews on the IMDb and a couple on Letterboxd. I found one blog, but in the blog post about it, they actually get the identity of the Red Mask wrong.
Oh my!
So I think they were only watching it with one eye open while they were writing their blog with the other eye or something, because they get it wrong, which is interesting. So very little written about it, but I did find on an Italian film database an actual kind of plot summary, which I think sort of sums it up quite well, but also misses out a lot, which is probably for the best. Marco, a soldier of fortune, goes with some comrades, that's our comedy duo, to the castle of Rossa. I've said that wrong. Residence of a violent and ruthless feudal lord, to offer his services. However, he soon realizes that by remaining in the tyrant's militia, he will become an accomplice to his misdeeds. He therefore abandons the castle and joins a group of rebels who've sworn to overthrow the evil feudal lord, commanded by a mysterious masked knight known as Red Mask. That covers quite a big chunk of the film.
Yeah.
It misses out the gypsy subplot.
It also misses out this film's utter fascination with whipping human flesh and bare flesh. There are a couple of scenes in this movie. There's the whipping scene where we're treated to Lex Barker's back being striped.
Yes. Somebody pointed out in one of the reviews I read that no matter how many times they hit him, he's still got the same number of marks on his back.
True, but then there's also the torture scene earlier in the film where they have guy, or they have him tied up face first, and they're shoving red hot implements into the upper part of his chest, and then the lower part of his body, is the lower part of his near his stomach, and that's some pretty gruesome stuff for the time period, I thought.
And he so Marco he initially gets into the good favor of evil
Astolfo,
tyrant, because he's the gypsy woman is dancing with a bear. The bear's chain breaks because presumably she's got it a bit too excited with her dancing. So he just immediately jumps forward and stabs it. And they're all very grateful. I mean, I was quite surprised. You'd think the gypsies would be a bit like, oh man, do you know how long it took us to train that bear? But anyway, so he kills it, but it attacks him. So Karima, the dancing gypsy, she kind of helps him with his wounds. Astolfo is basically then jealous that this guy is clearly cooler than he is. So he immediately challenges him to a fight. And this all reminds me very much of a kind of, your typical tyrant who wants to be the strongest and the best.
Yeah, he's got to be seen by everyone as the apex predator, essentially. And so he finds a way to do so.
It's like Putin making sure that photographers catch him riding a horse topless and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He's what a big man I am. So then he starts fight. He challenges Marco to a fight and says, there's a prize if he wins. But then, so obviously Marco is winning. So Astolfo's like, I'll give you more money if you let me win. And so he does. And initially that seems to get Marco in Astolfo's favor, but very quickly Astolfo starts to worry about this guy and how popular he is and how good looking he is, and he just sees him as a threat. Sees him as a threat the whole time.
Well, yeah, I mean, we should say that besides being perpetually pissed, Astolfo is got a receding hairline. He he's not exact. If you were to stand him next to Lex Barker, believe me, there's an obvious difference there. It's not. It's perfect casting in getting an audience to believe immediately that of course he'd be jealous of this guy, even if he hadn't had to bribe him to win a fight.
Lex Barker would make us all feel inadequate, I think.
Oh hell yeah.
So meanwhile, we've seen the Yolanda, the niece, giving Marco the eye, and Karima is giving Marco the eye. And we've got the makings of a love triangle going on here. But Karima also wants to get into she wants to get in with Astolfo because I think she sees a kind of opportunity for a bit of a power grab. So there's a lot of kind of intrigue and drama and relationship stuff going on.
Because the gypsy girl Yolanda also has Karima. The gypsy girl also has a boy who's one of the gypsies who's supposedly her intended,
engaged,
and her shift of the shift of her eye toward Marco is not something that he takes very well. So and that sets up a scene later in the movie that shows us just how ruthless Karima can be. And there's a lot going on in this movie, and it's like I say, this is a really good example of why I like this genre a lot.
Yeah, it's really fun. I don't want to say too much more of the plot summary, really, other than to say that it does naturally all build to a big fight in the castle, which I'm kind of guessing they all will. In this genre,
probably, but this one is very entertaining. I mean, I really enjoyed this fight. There were moments during the first half of the movie where I honestly was kind of critiquing the director's choices in shot composition and different things. But that last 20 minutes or so, I was like, man, this thing kind of rocks. This is obviously where his attention was focused, and it shows.
And it's unlike our last movie, which used that amazing castle somewhere on a hill. This film is made, the interior of the castle is clearly a set. And at De Paolis Studios, because they occasionally do cut to the real castle that they're also using, and it looks completely different. So there are some shots of a kind of ruined castle, and then we cut to the inside and it's a really good castle, which is quite funny. But yeah,
it's movie magic, Adrian. Movie
it is,
magic.
yeah. And we also get to see some. You mentioned the torture in the dungeon with all the whipping and the burnings. They also have a very elaborate kind of what they call them, like an Iron Lady.
Oh yeah. That's the thing that
it's like a sort of cage full of swords.
Once Astolfo has contrived a way to do away with Marco, it's it's a cage with swords sticking out of the back part of it and swords sticking out of the front part of it, and you're just going to close the door on the victim within, which is a very cruel and inventive thing. And I like that whole sequence. Marco is able to turn the tables, but only because shall we say, things have become more complicated than we thought.
Yeah. And who is the Red Mask?
Good mystery there. Good mystery. I thought I knew.
Is the question. Yeah. And but it does keep you guessing. And then eventually we do find out. And it just becomes a bit of an opportunity for some comedy where there's a kind of some misunderstandings and so on and so on. But and also there's a suspicion. There's a few people that it could be, a bit like the last film. One of the people that it could be is the jester. Is he a jester?
Kind of a bard of some
sort?
The
court bard.
Yeah.
But he also makes jokes, and he seems to be a good guy.
And at least at one point, definitely does interfere with Astolfo's attempt or desire, shall we say, to murder someone.
Kill this. Yeah. Yeah. So it could be him. There's a few people it could be. But what the whole thing with the two comedy guys and having a pet monkey
is I never understood that. I never understood how they found this monkey, what was going on with the monkey.
No bearing. Though there's a point where they have to break back into the castle because they've somehow left the monkey behind. So they disguise themselves as monks, which, I found quite funny. But but I don't think either of them are the Red Mask.
Well, if there are things that are trimmed out of this movie, and that is a possibility, because I do see, multiple places I see a listing for a slightly longer running time than what we have here.
Oh, really? Okay.
What I'm wondering is we don't see them when they come by the monk's robes that they use. There are a couple of little moments in the film where I'm thinking, true. I wonder if that is just if that's something that was trimmed, or if that's something that was never included, and it's difficult to know. But yeah,
we need a shot of two monks in their underwear tied to a tree or something, don't we?
Well, see, that's what I assumed would be. Is it would just be another comedic sequence of them, finding a way to get hold of the monks' robes to, and if that's what it is, thank you for trimming it. But I have just,
sure.
I'm completely and I'm just completely wheeling out there. This is a complete surmise on my part. I have no idea.
Yeah. So, I think this film's really good. There's one thing that I found in doing my research, and I want to just show you so people can hear what you think of it. I'm just sending you a link in the chat to something really cool I found. I found a load of behind-the-scenes photos for this film on some kind of database. I think it's a Cinecittà database. But you don't get these kinds of behind-the-scenes photos for a film like this normally. And there are loads, and they're really good. So I wanted to share that with you to have a look, and I'll put the link out. But yeah, there's some good ones, including there's a scene in the film where you can see a guy holding a bird of prey on a glove, and so there's a photo taken here of Liana Orfe with what looks like a falcon, which makes me wonder whether it came from the circus, perhaps. I don't know. What do you think? You see some good ones in there.
I see a lot of good ones. There's
some good pictures of her in her costume, posing, playing around for the camera.
There's the caged bear, the actual bear.
Yeah. So I wonder whether the bear came from her circus, perhaps.
Probably. That would make sense, actually.
And the monkey. I mean, it would make sense, even though she doesn't interact with any of them. But there's some good pictures as well of Cello with the monkey, and just people standing around with lights. And There's pictures of guys in their soldiers' uniforms smoking. It's pretty cool to see this many photos for what is basically quite a forgotten movie.
I know, yeah, and I wonder. I assume that these were primarily taken because of her. Because I mean, look, there's this one where she's walking up a set of stairs and is hiking up her costume to show off her legs. That would be Liani or Orfe that I'm speaking of, and things. These are things that I'm assuming. Lord knows there are lots of production photographs that are taken for to puff up a film to use in the campaign to advertise it. But there's some really interesting photos here. Good find.
Yeah, there's one where you've got like just extras and people that are not, we don't know who they are, which is quite nice to see as well. Not many of Lex Barker.
There's a few. He's always in the picture with someone else, with Chelo Alonso. Yeah, and this is wild.
So it's pretty cool. Anyway, I just thought that was quite a fun thing to find. So I will share that and put that in the show notes. So the pictures, I think if you want to see the really good quality picture, you have to order one or something. So they're not the best quality pictures, but you can get a good look at them.
And it does look like it has the dates on there as well. These are from the November 13th, 1959. So that gives us an idea of, I'm assuming, the production period. So
yeah,
what this tells me is that if anybody ever does rescue this from obscurity and puts it out on a Blu-ray, there is the ability to do a nice photo gallery. So
yeah,
that's nice to know.
Little behind the scenes thing. So another thing I found, and you mentioned that there are a couple of other films that this film put you onto. One of them The Prince in the Red Mask from 1955?
Oh, no. The one that popped immediately to mind was the Great Adventure of Scaramouche from it's a 1972 film.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. I was just thinking, wow, that one looks interesting, and it's from very late in the period.
Yeah.
And so it makes me think that would be a lot of fun. Using Scaramouche at that point. I mean, I guess they're desperately hoping people remember it at all, but it has an interesting cast, including Erna Schurer, who I know from Scream of the Demon Lover and a few other films as well. But it shares a few people who were connected to this film, and so once again down the rabbit hole with these things.
Yeah, because I came across this film, Il Principe della Maschera Rossa from 1955, and it made me wonder whether The Terror of the Red Mask was some kind of a sequel to this film, which incidentally stars Yvonne Furneaux of Hammer fame. But none of the character names are the same at all, although the plot summary is a little bit similar in that there is an evil duke and then a mysterious figure appears out of nowhere to fight against the evil duke, known by the name of the Red Masked Prince. So there's a little bit of a plot similarity, but I don't think our film is a sequel to this one. But interesting that the mysterious Red Masked fighter was done 5 years before this film. And this one is available on YouTube, but I couldn't get it to work with English subtitles. So,
the Great Adventure of Scaramouche's Great Adventure. I'm not sure exactly what the English title would have eventually been, but it is available on YouTube, and it does. You can see it with English subtitles, which is nice to know.
Ah, okay. And you mentioned there was another film in particular that.
Oh, there were a couple.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, what was the?
Oh, don't worry if it's not.
Oh, I know. The thing is, there were so many, and
they're all the same.
I think
title.
Well, that's the thing is that one or two of them I checked into, and this, the Scaramouche film was the only one that I immediately found that I could watch, at the click of a button.
Yeah,
so.
Fair enough. So, I think this is, like we're always saying on this podcast, this is a really good film that deserves a restoration.
It does. It really does.
Be great to see this looking as it used to, rather than the poor quality that it's in now. But I really enjoyed this one. Good swashbuckling fun.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you know what film we're going to do next?
I'm
looking at our list.
Which one? Let's see. So this was released in 1960. So let's take a look at our list and see what would be the.
We've got 4 films from 1962. They're mostly 62 and 63. It was a bit of a bumper crop.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've talked about Zorro several times, so should we do a Zorro film next?
Oh, we certainly could. Sure.
Zorro the Avenger.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
Let's do that one next. So that one, if you're playing along at home, is also available on YouTube. And this one, the last time I checked, was the English dub. So fingers crossed that that's better than the English dub for Terror of the Red Mask, which you said keeps cutting out.
Well, it's not that the English dub is bad. It's that the audio on the version on Tubi leaves a lot to be desired. There are segments of the film where the audio drops in volume ridiculously, and then it comes back. It's not that there's no audio there. It's that it is just really, really low unexpectedly for a minute or two, and that is truly, truly irritating. But still, well worth watching, especially for free. It is sitting on Tubi.
Yes, yeah, definitely check it out. So, okay, I think that's probably it for Terror of the Red Mask. It gets 4 thumbs up from us.
Yes, definitely.
Since our last episode, we've had an email that I wanted to just quickly mention from Lee. Thanks, Lee, for getting in touch. And his email is titled Jose Larraz in Tunbridge.
Ah, okay. This is definitely connected to our earlier email.
Yeah, this is our last episode. He says, hello to both. I've always wondered how Jeffrey Seagull ended up in Rest in Pieces. I'll explain, Rod. This is for you. He was Mr. Perkins, no relation to Lee, who is also called Lee Perkins. He was Mr. Perkins in the long-running British children's television show Rent-A-Ghost. It's quite a career step from our weekly English episodic pantomime to an ultra-gory Spanish shocker. I wonder if they met in Tunbridge Wells. Do you know the film Rest in Pieces?
Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, I own it on Blu-ray, much to, I'm sure, some people's horror. But yes.
Yeah, okay. But you probably don't know Rent-A-Ghost.
No, this will definitely be the first time I've ever heard of this. So this was some kind of children's show?
Oh, it was big. Yeah, I loved it when I was a kid. It's basically a haunted house, but the family mainly can't see the ghosts. I mean, it's been done more recently. There was a really good British sitcom called Ghosts, which was a kind of updated version of Rent-A-Ghost.
Okay.
But Rent-A-Ghost was very good. Anyway, there was a character called Timothy Claypole, and he says in the end of the email, have to go now. Timothy Claypole has just caused Mr. Meeker's trousers to fall down, and I have to divert Mr. Davenport's attention before he sees underpants and faints. That's lost on Rod, says Lee, which I'm sure it is.
Yeah, well, that does sound rather, mildly Benny Hillish, but okay.
Oh, yeah, but for kids. Yeah. It was very funny. He also says, tell Rod the puffy loins worn in the Black Duke are the bottom part of a doublet, a tight-fitting medieval jacket incorporating a pair of short fancy pants.
fancy pants. So the part of the doublet. Okay.
Yeah, but sometimes I think also referred to as a doublet and hose. Possibly.
Right. They would always be accompanied by hose, some kind of pantaloons of some sort.
Because Timothy Claypole would always wear doublet and hose in Rent-A-Ghost. He was the kind of medieval jester in that show. There was another ghost who called Miss Popoff, and every time she sneezed, she would disappear and reappear somewhere else.
Okay, if that was the name of a character in a Benny Hill sketch, we'd all know what would happen.
Yeah.
So
kids today don't know how much they were missing all this great stuff from the 80s.
And quite honestly, they do not care.
Yeah, they're very lucky in many ways. Anyway, so there you go. Thanks, Lee, for getting in touch and for answering that question. We'd love to hear from you. If any of you want to get in touch with us, you can email us, get in touch with us on social media. The easiest way, if you don't know already, is to just use the Linktree link in the show notes, and then you can contact us through that. That's all, I think, for now from me. Rod, any final words or things you want to plug?
No, just the Bloody Pit podcast. Upcoming hopeful NashiCast episode sometime in February. Fingers crossed. And just glad to be here. I'm loving digging into these because this is the first one that I've not seen, and it really kind of hit the ball out of the park.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen any of these, so these are all first times for me, which is fun. Are there any more on the list that you haven't seen?
Several.
I mean, they're
several.
Yeah, this is pretty obscure, even for us.
Oh, I know, and that's part of the joy is that in a way I think we're almost breaking new ground here as far as podcasting in this vein. Ooh, and like I say, I mean, I hold out hope that by bringing attention to these movies, perhaps some enterprising Blu-ray company will take it upon themselves to do some type of look into releasing some of these.
Exactly. It can't be horror all the time, right? I mean, I love horror, but sometimes you need some doublet and hose and some rapiers and ruffles.
Well, you know, we need Eurospy releases. We need Crimi releases over here. We need these types of films. We need some serious attention paid to more peplum. You know.
I mean, one day, Rod, maybe we just need to start our own label.
Yes. I've always wanted to go broke.
You always wanted to be bankrupt.
Yeah. Well, it's something I've not done yet. So, you know, it would be an adventure all in its own.
Yeah, it would. So if anyone out there, you know, has some seed funding and wants to invest...
they'd like to toss away.
Wants to invest in a surefire winner, then the Wild Cinema label is ready to go. And on that bombshell, I think we'll say goodbye for now. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back soon with Zorro and Zorro the Avenger.
Zorro the Avenger, which I'll be honest, I cannot remember if I've ever seen. So could be good.
Looking forward to that. Okay, thanks everybody, and we'll be back soon. Bye.
Bye everyone.